Hi, Flosstube. My name is Becca, and I'm SamBrie Stitches here on Flosstube and other social media platforms. Welcome to another special edition of Interview with a Flosstuber. I'm very happy to be here with Carolyn. She is C. Zook Stitch. That is a tongue twister. I always have a hard time. Here on Flosstube and Instagram. We actually finally got a chance to meet in person at the Stitch Summit. That was very exciting, and I was super awkward because
You weren't, though. You weren't at all.
What I did is I literally put my hand out to shake her hand. I have no idea what I was thinking. I was completely awkward, and I don't think I will ever live down.
You were in business mode. I get it. I get it.
It was, I don't even know what I was thinking, but that will always be, I think, a memory of the meetup or of the retreat. But Carolyn also co-hosts the Magazine Monthly Challenge with Robin, who I did an interview with already, of Bird's Eye Stitches. So that is a pretty good group, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that. On her channel, she tends to do a little bit shorter videos, but they are jam-packed. They're filled with stitching, her plans, that kind of stuff. And she also records like these Flosstube extras for magazine flip-throughs, which is pretty cool. So, you know, before you go and buy the magazine, she kind of shows you the ins and outs of that. So I thought that was kind of a neat little addition to her channel. So, and she's also a fellow PNW stitcher who gets with acorns and threads, probably closer than I am to acorns.
Yeah, a little bit closer.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with her channel, I will definitely link it down below so you can go check it out. But before we jump into the questions, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me too. This is so much fun. So I grew up, I mean, a lot of people who have watched my channel, especially for a long time, might already know this, but I grew up in the Midwest, actually, and then had a quarter life crisis at 25 and moved out sight unseen to Portland, Oregon, and just restarted my life, I guess you could say. It was a big risk, which is funny because I'm not much of a risk taker. But, you know, moving clear across the country is no big deal for me. I've done it multiple times now. I lived out here for a while. Then I went to Pittsburgh for grad school and then moved back to Portland. And I've been here, I don't know, about 20 years, I guess, almost.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 years. And for work, I've been in higher ed for over 20 years of that career. So I love working with adult learners. I love doing kind of mentoring and coaching and helping them figure out their career paths. I find that really rewarding. So I've been in some capacity working with college age students and older adults throughout most of my career, except for that very first job right out of undergrad, where I was in marketing of all things.
Oh, wow.
For about a year and a half. I was not trained in it. It was just the first job offer I got that I jumped on, and it was not my passion.
Yeah.
But it was for a wine importer. So it was lots of free wine.
Oh,
it was a lot. Yeah. My first day of work, they said, oh, it's actually wine school tonight, which is a requirement for all employees to attend wine school. Are you able to stay late? You know, and I was 22 at the time, and I'm like, yeah, I can stay late to drink wine and learn about it. So there were definitely some perks to that job for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Definitely a good first job coming out of undergrad. Wow. Nice.
I had to be told time and time, this is not normal. Normal jobs don't allow you to drink while you're at your computer. Right. But, you know, it was research for my job. So it had to be done.
That's pretty cool. Cool.
It was pretty great job.
I'm actually from Portland.
Oh, are you?
All places. Yep. Born and raised in Portland, Oregon. So yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yep. I think I got married at 19. So that's when I moved away. Well, I moved away about at the age of 20 because my husband was in the Marines. So we've moved, you know, all over the US, but yep, from Portland.
That's great.
Yep. Pretty cool.
I knew I liked you for some reason.
So, I'm just curious, why did you start a Flosstube, and were there any particular motivations?
Yeah, I got back into stitching I remember it was August 2018. when I got back into it. And I went down the Flosstube rabbit hole, right? Watching other people and whatnot. And I don't have a lot of friends in my real life that are, into crafts or stitching or anything like that. So I thought, well, this seems like something I could do, and maybe I can meet a few people, even if they're not local. At least, with the internet and all that. I mean, we have a lot of really great connections. And maybe I can meet some people who kind of will nerd out in the same way that I do about this stuff and just have that connection. So that's primarily why I started. I'm like, if I get, 4 or 5 people that are just, want to share and become friends with, that's great. And so that's primarily why I started. It was to meet other people who were doing things that I love to do as well.
Yep. I think that's a pretty common thing for most of the Flosstubers, that I've talked to is they either don't have local friends or they just really wanted to branch out. And, I could definitely see that. I didn't really have any I had like a local stitching group, but we had like just started out kind of type of thing. And that was just off of Facebook, putting that. But you're close to Acorn. So like, you could get into the stitchy groups and stuff like that. But
I didn't even know about it when I, at that time. Yeah. No, wow. I didn't know about it.
Yeah. Oh, but that's crazy. My sister lives 45 minutes from Acorns and I'm so, so jealous. She stitches too. And I'm so jealous because she doesn't get up there because she has my niece. But man, if I lived that close to Acorns, I think I'd be there daily.
My work is exactly halfway between my house and Acorns, but the problem is that they close at 4. Acorns closes at 4.
Yeah.
And so, like, I bank account instead of being open till 10 p.m. at night or something. I'm like, I'll just go stop by Acorns. But yeah, it's exactly halfway. So it's about half an hour. If I leave from my house, it's about half an hour to Acorn. So it's not bad.
Not too bad. Yep.
Not bad at all.
Except for the time. I know they close early, but
yeah.
So this is probably a very obvious answer. But how did you come up with your channel name?
Well, there's actually more to the story.
Okay, cool.
It is because of my name, obviously, Carolyn Zook. But I was into my 20s before I realized that my name could be a play on words. So the C for Carolyn, Zook, and that you could turn it into kind of a command, right? If you're talking about sentence structure. So see Zook do something, right? Like watching, like watch me do this. And so I was well into my 20s before I realized that my name actually did that. So I use it for a lot of different things, like see Zook. I don't know. I used to run half marathons, right? So it'd be see Zook run, for example. So it's kind of like a sentence, a command almost. So yeah. So when I was thinking about starting my channel, I was like, well, obviously the name is going to be See Zook Stitch, as a kind of my name, but also a play on words.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I didn't even put that together when you're sitting there reading your name, your channel name. Oh my God. Yeah. That is
I haven't gotten many comments about it, but it's fun. It's like a fun little secret Easter egg, I guess.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah,
blew my mind.
That's why it's See Zook Stitch.
I love it. That is so cool. See Zook run. See Zook. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Not very many people. Yeah, there's not very many people that could do that with their name. So that's pretty
cool. When a lot of people call me Zook or some variation of Zook because it's short and it's kind of fun to say, and as a nickname. I grew up, being called variations of Zook. So cool. So that's where I came with the name.
Very cool. So how did you learn to stitch and how long have you been stitching?
So I don't remember learning, to be honest. I feel like I just always, as a kid, I was very crafty. I would do anything I could get my hands on. Mom used to take me to the Ben Franklin. Do you remember Ben Franklin stores?
Yeah, I think there's still a couple around.
Oh, are there? Like the 5 and dime? Yeah. So we would go there and she would let me pick out, I probably started with plastic canvas. Because it's a bit for a little kid to learn, the holes are a little bit bigger and the medium is a little bit stiffer.
Yeah.
And I loved it because I could create 3D projects out of it. And so I would just sit, that's what I would do. Like I would just sit and create things out of plastic canvas, and that translated really nicely over into cross stitch in, I don't know how old I was, but it just felt very natural to then go and do cross stitch. But I don't know that anybody taught me necessarily. I think I just kind of taught myself and figured it out on my own.
Yeah.
But I was a kid. I was in elementary school at some point, and I kind of did it off and on. And then I went to college, and, everything kind of stops when you're in college.
Yep.
And then I picked it back up in August 2018. So
Nice. I think
yeah.
my mother-in-law did plastic canvas. She made like tissue box covers and stuff like that. And it's a lot of X's, but with like yarn and that kind of stuff. So
right.
you could easily transition over to stitching for sure. So
yeah, the technique is the same basically.
Yep.
So yeah.
So do you happen to have a favorite project that you've stitched so far?
I do. I actually brought it.
I love when people bring their project.
I don't know how well it will fit. So I love all my projects equally for different reasons. As my mother used to say when we used to ask her, which child do you love more? And she would say, I love you both for different reasons.
Yep.
So I love all my projects for different reasons. But if I have to pick a favorite, it's going to be Harbor Haven.
Oh.
This is by the Bay Needle Art.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think Lady Robbins is stitching that, I think.
Oh, is she?
I thought so. It sounds familiar. Oh my gosh, that's so long.
It's so long. I can't even get it all in the shop.
Wow, that's a lot of stitching.
It's a lot of stitching. It's 12 charts all put together. And this one was my first big project that I did. But the reason this one is really sentimental to me, because not only is it the first big project I did it because I started watching Jan Hicks. Jan Hicks Creates, and it was the first of what were to become many enabling projects by Jan. Yeah. So she was working on it, and I said, oh, that's really pretty. Every time she showed it, it's like, that's so pretty. That's so pretty. You know what? I need to do this. And so I don't know if she really knows that she enabled me on that particular one. But that really, so this piece really stands for that friendship for me as well. Because that's when I first kind of started watching Jan and was enabled by her. Back when I was so young and influenced by her. And then that piece also was one of the first times I went to Acorns. Speaking of going to Acorns, and Janine helped me pick out I can show it again, the watercolor is not, everything is called for except for the water.
Oh, okay.
So the called for is more of a green, and I want it to be more blue. And Janine helped me pick out a Threadworks color, 1056, if anyone's interested in what that color is.
Funny you remember that too.
What's that?
I said that's neat that you remember that color too.
Yeah. Yeah, and so she helped me pick that out, and it was, I mean, I'm very much a rule follower, so I generally use the called for, but sometimes I'll mix things up. But so Janine helped me pick that up. So that's like a memory of Janine stitched in there, a memory of Jan stitched in there. And then, of course, I just think it's a really beautiful piece. But
yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm kind of a sentimental sap.
I think a lot of us stitchers are, though, because whenever I ask this question, there's always a piece that has some sort of special memory linked to it that kind of stands out more so than some of the others. So I think a lot of us are sentimental. And Janine is absolutely amazing at helping with colors, because my first big antique sampler reproduction, I brought it and she was just pulling silks left and right off the wall. It was just looking at it and being like, okay, I know which one. Oh, look, it matches. And I'm like, what?
She's amazing. She's really, really amazing. Yeah.
Yes. We're very lucky to have her.
Very lucky.
Yeah, because not very many, I mean, a lot of the shop owners know their stuff, but I think Janine just is above and beyond.
For sure.
So, so what do you enjoy most about stitching?
I I think it's the methodical kind of feeling of it, that it's almost meditative
Yeah.
when I'm doing it, right? And so it's a great way to kind of unwind, but it's still challenging. Like I like the variety. Like you can pick up a piece that's more challenging or
Mhm.
less challenging if you just really need to kind of zone out. And so it's become really a very important part of my day. I'm an introvert, believe it or not, by nature, but my job is very extroverted. And so by the time I come home at the end of the day, I'm very tired and worn out, and I just need to kind of sit with my own thoughts for a little bit to
Yep.
decompress. And so stitching that, just kind of that motion of repetitive, kind of going up and down is just really soothing to me. I think
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
I get that. And I'm the same, except I bring my stitching everywhere. So right now I'm on half days at work, but when I work my full shifts, um, they know that if I'm in the break room and I'm stitching, to leave me alone.
Leave me alone. I'm counting. Yeah.
Because if I don't get my stitching in on those little breaks in my lunch, I'm cranky. I think
Yeah.
just helping to break up the day and just kind of, because I work retail, so that's not fun. So
Oh,
it kind
yeah.
of like, it just, I don't know what it does, but it just centers me and gets me ready for the next, couple of hours before the next break or whatever. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice to kind of just be able to focus on your stitching and kind of let everything else, because you can't think of everything else when you're trying to stitch and count those
Right.
stitches and stuff like that. So yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I do get very agitated if I can't stitch for a day or two. I'm like kind of cranky Carolyn comes out as well. So I
Yep.
totally get that.
Yep. I think that's a
Yeah.
common thing for many of us. If we don't get to stitch or do something, with our stitching, we
Yeah.
get kind of cranky.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we're gonna get out of stitchy talk a little bit,
Okay.
learn a little bit more about you. Do you have a favorite genre of book or movie?
Um, I really like, I don't read a lot, I'll be honest. Grad school, I used to read a lot as a kid, and then I went to grad school where you had to read a lot. And I was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of, but if I do read, and it's not for work because I teach college, right? So there's a lot of reading associated with that.
Yep.
But if I'm reading for fun, I really like historical fiction a lot. Movies, I like documentaries a lot. I often say, oh, I can't commit to sitting down and watching a whole movie. 2 hours, maybe more. I can't really commit to that long. But then I'll spend 3, 4 hours just watching Flosstube after Flosstube after
Right.
Flosstube. And like it's the same
Yeah.
amount of time, but somehow it feels different. So I'm not a huge movie buff. I do like documentaries, and kind of the historical fiction if I read.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of right there with you. I don't read as much really. And I sit while I'm stitching, I just have floss tube on. I don't really do
Right.
much else.
Yeah, exactly. I don't use audiobooks or anything. I
Yeah.
just haven't quite gotten there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm always watching. I guess Hamilton, does that count as a movie? Hamilton's
Um,
my favorite movie.
yeah, I mean, not really a movie. Like you can sing along with the music and stuff. That's what I would do. That would throw
Yeah,
me off my stitching. So I would have to probably focus on that. But
that's true. That's true.
so do you have a fictional place that you'd most like to go to?
I think I would want to go to The Secret Garden. I loved that book as a kid.
Yes.
And the way it's in my head, I actually saw the movie too, when it came out a long time ago. And it was just like, that's where I want to go, hands down. I
Yeah.
love flowers and I love kind of escaping away where nobody really knows where you are and just kind of getting lost in it. So I really like that
I read
idea.
that book when I was in school. It's been a long time. When you said that, because I stitched I think Lizzie Kate has a secret garden pattern.
Oh, really?
I think, and I had stitched that a couple of years ago or 2, 3 years ago. And that
Okay.
got me thinking about the book again. And then now again, I need to get that back out.
Yeah, I think I put that book like on my Christmas list a year or two ago because I've since lost the one I grew up with. And
Yeah.
of course, it has a different cover now, which I was like, oh, I regret getting rid of my original book that was falling apart and all
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
but
I
the
don't
story's
think,
still the same. So
yeah, I don't think I have the originals. I have A Wrinkle in Time that has like an older cover on it. And that was right about the same time
yeah,
I was reading it. But Goodwill is a good place to keep an eye out for those books. And
yeah,
I'm
that's
going to
true.
start checking. I'll start checking because I go quite often.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
yeah. So if you could choose to do anything for a day, what would it be?
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I, I'm gonna stay in my PJs all day long.
Okay.
Okay, it's gonna be snowing outside because we can control the weather.
Yep.
The Christmas tree will be up, and I'll be stitching with my cats cuddled nearby, my coffee, and stitch her out, and then go take a nap under the Christmas tree lights, and then
Yes.
maybe come wake back up and stitch some more.
Yeah.
It's really simple. That's all I need.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that sounds perfect. And unfortunately, you don't get very many days that are just as simple as that in real life.
No,
So yeah,
no,
that makes
not
sense.
at all. I feel like I could make that happen in my early 20s. And then something happened, I don't know, became more of an adult where I'm like, I used to sit and just craft all day long.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I fit that into my schedule because, I mean, I probably had like a 400 square foot apartment that, would take me 2 hours to deep clean the entire place,
Yeah.
um, and just grown up responsibilities. But I'm hoping to do something similar, some version of that on Thanksgiving Day is my
Yeah,
goal.
you talked about having the time off.
Yeah.
It would be nice if it snowed. I don't get snow very much in my area. So
Mm-mm.
I don't know if that's
Don't
what
either.
yeah, down in
Yeah.
Portland, not very often, but who
Mm-mm.
knows? The weather has been weird, so maybe we will
It has
get
been
snow.
weird.
I would
It
love a
has.
white Christmas for sure. So
That would be wonderful.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So do you have any other hobbies besides cross stitch since we just talked about not having enough time?
I mean, I have ideas for other hobbies. I'm collecting other hobbies, if that counts.
Yeah, actually collecting stuff counts as
There you go. I actually, before I got back into cross stitch, I actually knit for like 20 years.
oh wow.
I was not very good at it because I didn't really care about gauge a whole lot. But I did knit a lot. And I used to quilt. And I really want to get back into quilting. So I've been starting to collect some fabrics. Haven't done anything with them. I want to get into, so I took a peyote stitch class at Acorn. So I want to like learn that type of beading. So I bought a bunch of stuff and took one class and
Yep.
yeah, so things like that, I would say that I really want to get back. I have watercolors that I want to give a try and all sorts of things like that someday I'm gonna try. I don't know when, but I have the items.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Like we were just talking about it. There's not enough time at
Right.
all.
Mm-mm.
It's crazy because I have the other crafts too. Wool applique, there's quilting.
Yeah.
I have one full quilt done. My very first one my husband has. And then both of my girls are like, where are ours? And I'm like, well, my younger daughter's is halfway done, but that's still out of love of it. But I just don't have time because
Yeah.
stitching and a lot of people that I've talked to, stitching always kind of takes precedence
That's
over
right.
the other crafts. And it's crazy how it does that to the crafters, like how stitching just calls to us more than other crafts do. So
Yeah, yeah. Because I always thought, well, I can use like my afternoon time on the weekends or whatever to do something else because I do stitch in the evenings, um, mostly. And but I just haven't had time even in the afternoons because there's always errands to run or something to clean or
yeah, when
a
you're not
lecture to write.
working, when you're not
Yep.
working, there's errands, there's cleaning, there's tons of stuff. I just my older daughter just moved out. She got her first apartment.
Oh,
Been there a little over 2 weeks.
okay.
Adulting sucks. But
It
she's
really
learning
does.
because
It really,
she works full time. and there's just not enough time to do other stuff. And so she's learning that in her early 20s. So
That's a good time to learn it,
yeah.
unfortunately, but it's kind of sad to see the kind of the big wide eyes kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
this isn't as great as I thought.
Yep. Being on your own, having bills to pay and no time
And
to
they
do
keep
anything.
coming, those bills.
Yes.
Like I
Uh-huh.
pay them every month, but they keep sending them to me.
Yep. It's being adult is rough. It really
It's
is.
really rough. It is really rough.
So this is one of my most favorite questions.
Okay.
It's how would your friends describe you?
Oh my gosh. Such a good question. I think they would say I'm organized. I tend to be the planner, right? So I'm very organized. I like making sure everyone can get together and that type of thing. Um, I think sometimes people are a little surprised how goofy I am. It's interesting, you have a different work persona than you do like around your friends and that
Yeah.
type of thing. And I work with college students, right? And so, they'll curse or whatever, and then they always apologize. They're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But it's not even like a bad word necessarily, but they're just like, "I'm so sorry for my language." And I'm like, "Okay." But if you guys knew me like around my friend, right? Like, I mean, it's
Different.
nice that they're aware of it, but it's kind of like, well, I curse too, you guys. Like, it's just when I'm like, wow, I really wonder what their perceptions are
Yeah.
of me, because they're like, oh, I'm so sorry I said the S word or something. And I'm like, well, that's not that big of a deal.
Right.
So yeah, so I don't know, like I try to be there for my friends as much as possible. And, I try to be optimistic as much as possible. Um, in life. But I think one of the really great things about our community is just how welcoming it is, and how like it doesn't matter what level you're stitching at, right? And I've seen a lot of people who, I think it was that StitchCon, and I was walking around to look at what everybody was working on, and one woman, and I didn't get her name, but she was like, "Oh, I'm just a beginner. I only started like a month ago," and her project was beautiful, regardless of how long she'd been stitching. But then when she said, like, "I just started stitching," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is so good." But she was very apologetic about, you know, "Oh, everyone else is better than me." And I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
not what our community is," and hopefully we hold everyone accountable to that, right? That
Yeah.
like there's no space for that in our community. And I do appreciate that for the most part, that people are very welcoming and, ask questions and will help you, because we want more people in our community. This is
Yeah.
not like, I feel like we're not gatekeeping this community. We want more people to be involved. So
Yep. Yeah. I think stitchers are a different, I don't want to say breed, but a different type of human, basically.
yeah.
They're more open, they're more understanding, um, they're more giving. I mean, it's
Oh my gosh.
crazy how giving they are. But yeah, definitely if more of the world could be like cross stitchers, I think it would be a better place. Like people would
Definitely.
be nicer and and I'm not speaking for all the cross stitchers. There are not there are
Right.
some
There's
not
always
great
some.
people too, but I mean
Yeah.
for the most part, yeah, I could see that very welcoming and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you going to StitchCon next year?
I'm not. I am going to the Garon Stitching in the
Oh, okay.
Wild, and they're very close together. And where we live, that's two very far trips, very close together. So I had to kind of pick one, and
Mm,
I thought, well, I already did StitchCon once, and so like I'm going to do the Garon one, which is in May.
yeah, that
Are
should
you
be.
going?
I'm going to StitchCon. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Because I didn't get to go last year, even though I got in. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or this year, actually, I shouldn't say last year, but this year I
Yeah.
didn't get to go.
Right. Oh, that's right. That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah. I'm like last year, this year. I don't even know
I
time
don't even know at this point.
So how do you prefer to stitch? Do you use a hoop, a Q snap, in hand?
I like Q snap. I like my stitching to be as drum tight as possible.
Me too.
So a Q snap really gets that. I love that sound, that popping sound it makes when it goes through the fabric.
Yep.
When your needle goes through the fabric. So yeah, I love a Q-snap. I have just like a book light that I use. It's meant to clip onto your book.
Mm-hmm.
So you can read in bed or whatever, but it works just fine. It clips onto my Q-snap and so I can see what I'm doing.
Nice.
But yeah, I like a Q-snap.
So with the Q-snap, because I'm also a Q-snap stitcher,
Mm-hmm.
but I stitch in the well. And I always get people that, why do you do that? Do you stitch with the fabric in the well or do you stitch it on top?
I stitch on top. And then if I have trouble, sometimes I do, I know what you're talking about, like have trouble like putting my needle through
Yeah.
on the backside.
Yeah.
I'll just loosen the Q-snap. Like I'll just loosen that
Yeah.
side and then I'll be able to stick my needle under and in the needle and then just tighten it back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it on top.
Yeah, I always ask that when people say they're Q-snap because now I'm curious because I always get the question of what are you doing? Why is
I
it
feel like, and maybe this isn't true, but I feel like my hand would hit the edge more if it was in the well.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Maybe.
maybe not.
Yeah. I try to use it on my lap stand and so I two-hand stitch and I don't
Okay.
find it, as much or as bad, but
Yeah. That makes sense.
so do you have like a preferred fabric that you lean towards or are you kind of whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stitch on pretty much anything as long as it's 32 count or lower.
Okay.
I am practicing some 36 count, but I mean, my favorite is probably just a nice even weave Lugana. 32 count is kind of like my sweet spot, but like I'll stitch on Aida, I'll stitch on linen, really anything that either I have or that the pattern calls for. Sometimes with the kit Aida, it's not high quality Aida, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I worked on a piece where Robin actually gave me a piece of Aida from one of her Mill Hill kits, and it just shredded. It just shredded the thread. The threads were DMC, so they were good quality threads, but the fabric just shredded it to pieces, and it was 14 count. So it wasn't so. I just ditched that fabric and picked a different one. So sometimes with kit fabrics, I'm a little wary of. Not always, but sometimes. So sometimes I'll change those out, but like I'll stitch on anything.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm was an Aida only stitcher. Since doing the reproduction charting. I've started stitching on linen. I don't like it at all. I do not like linen at all. I'm upfront, but I'm stitching on it just because it goes with the pattern. But I love Aida.
It kind of goes back to what we we're talking, like, there's different types of stitching almost. It's like, do I need to just relax and do something almost mindless and meditative, or am I up for a little bit of a challenge? Right. And so sometimes, and that's why I like having multiple projects too, right? Is that I can pick, like, I just need something mindless to stitch on because I just need to, or like, hey, I'm up for a little bit of a challenge. Maybe I'll pull out that linen piece. So I like having 50 plus projects to choose from.
Yeah. And and some people don't like having all the whips, but others do like to have that choice.
Yeah.
There is the question, we're not to it yet, but since we've kind of brought it up, is that how you decide on what you're going to work on next? Is just, if you need something simple or something more challenging?
No, because that's a little too relaxed for me. I like the idea of it. But I'm very much a planner, and you had mentioned the Magazine Monthly Challenge group that I co-run with Robin. And so we have a monthly theme and a monthly acrostic. And so a lot of my projects are centered around that and what will fit the theme and or acrostic. I also am doing Whip Go this year. I'm doing the 25/7 group by Soulful Stitching Melanie this year. And starting to think about for next year. Next year, I think I'm going to be a little less planned out. I say that now, but I don't know if I even know how to do that. So by that, I think I'm going to skip a year of doing Whip Go, and just that will open up some more time in my month to really tackle some of these projects that I think I could finish next year. Because while I have a lot of whips, it is starting to to stress me out a little bit. And so if I can finish up some of these whips, that'll take a little bit longer than just, oh, they're really close. And hopefully I can do that next year and then kind of be back on to whip go again the following year. Because I do like it. I mean, I get a lot done. But there's just so many good, I think designers, and this goes for you because you're a designer now, like you just need to take a pause. Just give us all like a year or two to get caught up.
Yeah.
And then you could go back to designing and releasing. That's my plea.
And that's funny that you said that because quite a few people, like I've been watching a lot of Flosstubes, and a lot of people are saying that they really want to get a lot of their whips like completed next year. And that's not going to stop people from buying, but that may stop people from starting new projects. So that's funny that, again, it's crazy how all our stitchers minds kind of focus on that. It's weird. There's a big group. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I think it's just one person says something and then people start thinking, oh, maybe I can do that. A good idea. Yeah, so I get it. Wanting to.
Melanie is also doing Year of Whips next year, which is where you select, I think it has to be an even number of whips. The minimum is 6 whips, and the goal is to complete 3 of them. So half of whatever you select by the end of the year. And then she does a really nice drawing at the end of the year if you want to be entered into that. But it's just a really nice way to kind of support each other, and kind of came out of, because she was feeling exactly what you just said. Like, I got to get some of these moved to a finish. And I'm like, you know what, me too. And so she has done this group in the past and then took a couple of years off, I think, with the pandemic and life and everything. But she's bringing it back. So I'm excited.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's pretty neat, of all the different groups that you can be a part of inside the stitching community. Is really neat. All the different like focus groups and stuff like that. So with your magazine monthly, so can you like talk about it a little bit more? Like, do you obviously will pick patterns out of magazines, I would think. But
one would think,
but if you, because I don't think a lot of, and Robin, unfortunately, I didn't ask her to go into it in details. But I don't think a lot of people are too familiar with it. So
so it was actually Robin's brainchild, where she said one day, she said, I have all these magazines on my shelf with all the little sticky flags in it saying, oh, I want to stitch that, I want to stitch that. And they just sit on the shelf. And she said, I'm gonna make it a goal of mine to start stitching some of these flagged projects in these magazines. And I said, you know what, that's a really great idea. I want to do that with you. And then we're like, should we create a Facebook group? And so that's how it kind of started. It is not only for magazine pieces, though. So I think that's something that people hear the name and they're like, oh, well, I don't stitch for magazines, I can't join or anything like that. The idea is that, I mean, we're pretty relaxed with the rules, if you even want to call them that. It's up to you. We want to make it work for you. And so every month we have a theme and we have an acrostic. And so the theme, for example, for December is Razzle Dazzle. And so what a lot of people tend to do, and this is not a requirement, but is that they try to make their theme piece be from a magazine. And then the acrostic, which for December is Twinkle, right? It's kind of a longer one. That will be any of their whips.
Okay.
And so it doesn't necessarily have to be from a magazine. And then we'll do what we call pop-up challenges on various months throughout the year as well. And some of those will have a prompt and say, this one needs to be from a magazine. And so, some of them people might say, well, I don't really feel like starting something new for that prompt. So maybe I'll wait until next month. And then we do our yearly in January. We do what we call Bringo, which is a prompt base. So we have 25 different prompts. And each day we draw a different prompt and you make like a bingo board essentially. And some of those are more magazine focused, not all of them, but some of them are. But we give prizes that are based on not just having a blackout board, like where you have every square covered, but also based on number of just bingos. So if somebody says, I don't want to do a magazine piece, you can still participate in Bringo and just maybe
Okay.
you don't get those 2 squares.
Yeah.
But the idea is that, hey, let's stitch from our magazines that we have just sitting on our shelf. So that's kind of the idea behind it. And we're getting ready to enter our 3rd year. So we're really excited and we've
That's
made some fun
awesome.
changes. And yeah.
That is, and now that I think about it, I have a lot of like punch needle and primitive magazines. I buy them because they're amazing, but for some reason I don't stitch from them. Like
Yeah.
I stitch from my regular charts. And why do I buy the magazines if they're just going to sit there? And I don't know what that is. And I think a lot of people do that. So that actually is really cool that y'all came up with that group.
Yeah. It's been really fun. It's been really fun. We've made some great friendships too out of that group. So
I might join in on that just because I have some magazines. I don't know how well I'll do on it, but I think I need to utilize some of the patterns in there.
yeah, join us. I mean, Bringo is a really, really fun month for January. People really appreciate it. And it's been so much fun because it's only 1 hour or 100 stitches for each project.
Okay.
And then, it's 25 calls, but January is 31 days. And so we give you that last 6 days to do any makeup work that you need to, because, life happens. Not everybody's able to stitch every day.
Yep.
And so I think people appreciate that as well. So it's like, we'll do 25 calls, but you get 6 days to do any makeup that you want. So it's pretty accessible, I feel like, for people.
Yeah. Wow. That's actually really cool. I'm glad I asked you to explain it a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, so you can join us. It's on Facebook, just Magazine Monthly Challenge group.
Oh,
yeah. And we'll be releasing.
I'll link it down below too for people.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks.
So where is your favorite place that you've traveled, and did you bring stitching along when you went?
Ooh. I always bring stitching along, but I never really do as much as I think I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Because because I'm usually out doing things, or if it's somewhere like for work and I'm just in the hotel room by myself, I will stitch. But I think it's just kind of being out of my routine that I'm like, this feels kind of weird. And I get motion sick pretty easily, so I can't stitch like in a car, on a plane very well. But like even when I go to visit my folks, right, they, we play games in the evening, right? And so it's not really a lot of stitching time, even when I visit, which is kind of the place where I would feel probably the most comfortable sitting and stitching for a long time. But, we play games together, which is, I think, arguably a little more important than me getting my stitching done in.
Bonding family time, yeah.
Yeah. So I always take something just in case, but I don't really tend to, I'm very much a creature of habit, right? And so I'm like, this is my stitching spot. This is where I stitch.
Yeah.
So I do always take it just in case, because always bring stitching. But one of my favorite places is the Oregon coast, which is so,
Me too.
it's just so gorgeous, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And it just feels exactly like the Goonies movie. I mean, it really does. So, but one time my niece, when she was younger, used to come visit me for a few days at a time. And we went to the coast, and of course she was living in Atlanta at the time. So she's like, great, I'll bring my swimsuit. And she came to visit me in like July. She's like, great, I'll bring my swimsuit. And I'm like, no, it's not that kind of coast. She's like, it's July and we're going to the beach. I'm like, yeah. And so we went, and of course we had to buy our sweatpants and a sweatshirt because she was cold. And she said, we were knitting at the time. I was knitting at the time, and I was teaching her how to knit. And she said, I want to sit on the beach and knit with you. That's all I want to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl knows the way to my heart. And they had a knitting shop in Cannon Beach. So like we went and got her some needles and yarn, and we sat on the beach in the freezing cold.
Cold, yep.
And we knit together. So, but yeah, I love the Oregon coast. I really do. We're so lucky to live where we live.
Oh yeah. I actually grew up, my parents loved camping. So almost every weekend we would be at the coast, Agate Beach, Newport, Seaside, Astoria, all over the place camping. And I think those of us that have grown up on the Oregon coast, like I would go in the ocean and I would be fine. I think we're just acclimated to it or whatever, but people coming to visit from other states, it's freezing cold. Even here in Washington, we'll go to the beach and I'll go in the water and my husband's like, you're crazy. He's from Michigan. He's like, you're crazy. It's like, what are you doing? So yeah,
that's funny.
the beach is
a special place.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
If y'all that are watching have not been to the Pacific Northwest, you should really probably try and take a trip out because we have mountains, we have the beach, we have desert, we have everything. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. It really is.
Yes. And Oregon has no sales tax.
Yeah, Oregon has no sales tax. So lucky. And you guys you pay a little bit probably more in gas than we do, but you don't pump your own gas. We
don't pump our own gas.
Yeah, that throws a lot of people off.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think of that as weird anymore, but you just sit in your car and no, you do not tip the gas station attendants. You do not tip them.
Nope.
I get that question a lot.
Yeah. Because they'll wash your windshield and stuff like that while the gas is pumping, and people probably
sometimes
yeah. It is very, even though I'm from there, it's still very weird when I go back. I go down to Acorns and Threads for a day or so, and I have to get gas, obviously, to come back home. And it's just weird for me because I'm so used to pumping my own gas.
It's really nice. You don't have to worry about the rain. You don't have to worry about your hand getting that gas smell.
Yeah, I think I would be happy with paying a little bit more than,
It's really nice. It's really nice. Yeah. Sometimes you have to have a little awkward, small talk, but it's a very small price to pay.
Yep, I agree. I definitely love it.
Yeah.
So what can you not do without for your stitching? Like your favorite go-to must-have besides the basics?
I brought it to show you.
Oh, okay.
So I have to have my light, which I don't know if that counts as a basic or not, so I can see. But this is a Ort container.
I love that.
I got a little bit of highlighter on it the other day. But this, because I get really I was trying to think, what do I feel out of sorts if I don't have, besides like obviously my Q snap and my light. Yeah. And it's my little Ort container and a needle minder, which, no one in particular, but this one is, Ronnie from Garon made this for me way back in the very, very early days when they were just getting started. And I don't know, I had ordered something from them and he put this in the package with a really, really lovely note that was so sweet and thoughtful. And it was just a surprise. And I love it. And it makes me think of Gary and Ronnie whenever I use it. 'Cause it's in Gary Green, as you can see.
Yep, Gary Green. Yep.
And the little note that he wrote with it. And so I use this every single day. And I like it because it folds up, so it's easy to travel with. So my little Ort container from Ronnie is really special to me.
Yeah. I
told you I was a sentimental sap.
Well, I love that it's sentimental. I love that. They're amazing, and I really enjoy them. But just having that Ort container, it makes sense because, like I said, I take my stitching everywhere. So when you have those little pieces of thread, and say I'm sitting in the waiting area having my oil changed, what am I going to do with that thread? Just put it on the little side table or put it back into my project? I don't want that stuff everywhere. So those little Ort bags are actually, and they fold up and they're portable. So they should just go in everybody's little accessory stitchy bag. And
I'm pretty sure they sell these now on their Garon tote bag site. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they have a section for those. So you can get your own.
Yeah, definitely worth it. But I think that's such a good idea because nobody wants to leave the little all over the place. Yeah, definitely. I love that.
Yeah.
So we are at the last question.
Okay.
This is a question, and I always say this in every interview, but I think it's my most favorite question, and I ask it for a reason because the past couple of years have been absolutely just a mess. So it's, what's the best thing that has happened to you within the past couple of years?
Such a great question. I've had a lot of really positive life changes despite everything that's going on.
That's good.
Yes, I sold my house, which was a good thing. I switched jobs, which I'm now doing my dream job. I liked my job before, but my favorite part of that job was just a little bit of what I did in my day to day. And now in my new job, it's the majority of what I get to do on my day to day. So I have my dream job. I moved into a new cute little house in a very safe neighborhood. So I feel safer. I am happy. Yeah, and I love my job. I mean, I really can't ask for more. My family's healthy, and safe. So yeah, I think those kind of major life changes, but they were all ended up being really positive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel really happy and well, it's Thanksgiving week, so I feel really thankful
Thankfully, yep.
for all the positive changes that have happened the
Yeah.
past couple of years.
That is great, because that's why I like asking this question, is because, you know, you really want to think. Everybody kind of dwells on the negative and, you know, the bad that has happened, but there are always good things that happen. And you just really don't think about it, because sometimes the bad with news and all that just keep pounding all the negativity. So I'm so glad that life changes. That's funny, because Robin, so her interview has been posted, but she also went through life changes, and so you both went through them and came out, you know, better than before. So
yeah, and I mean, what's going back to the stitching community too, right? Like your connections and your bonds with people start out around stitching, but then kind of like what you were saying, like life happens, and you know, you kind of move out of the stitching world, but you're still friends with these people. And so, you know, Robin and our friend Andrea were certainly there for me, as, you know, my previous job I was at for 14 years. So it felt really scary and risky to change, because what if the new job is even worse? You know what I mean? And it's scary, but you know, when you have the support of people who are stitchy friends, but then it kind of moves outside of just stitching. It's really a special bond.
Yeah,
It really is.
You're very, very blessed to have that with you guys.
I am very blessed.
So, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're very busy, and we had to move this around a little bit, so I'm glad that we got it done.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
I'm sure if we were in person, I would probably shake your hand.
Well, I would demand that you hug me. So how about that?
Next time they'll be hugging, not shaking hands. I still can't believe I did that.
One of my closest friends now, we met and we first shook hands when we first met.
Okay.
We're now like one of my closest friends. Yep.
That makes me feel better. So, but anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll say bye to everybody on Flosstube.
Bye, everyone.